I had this whole day off. It was cold and wet outside as it had been raining off and on all day. I stayed in and played video games, going about my day as I normally would around 5. The rain had picked up and there was a bit of lightning in the distance. I cooked up some dinner, then decided to watch a horror movie while I had the fitting ambience of the storm outside. I shut off the lights and spent the next 2 hours on the couch. The storm definitely got worse over that time. There weren't any outages or anything, but it was just really coming down hard outside with heavy lightning strikes nearby. It was around 10 o'clock. I wasn't really tired or ready for bed yet, but I got up to stretch my legs and refill my water. When I turned around toward the hallway, I immediately saw something move like a shadow on the wall. It was quick, just a split second too short for me to really understand what I saw, or even be sure that what I saw was real. I froze in place for a moment, then walked over and looked around, only to find nothing but an empty hallway. Maybe it was a flicker of light coming through the window from a far-off lightning strike. I also just got finished with the horror movie, so I could have been a little on edge and just seeing things. I honestly chalked it up to nothing and forgot about it. After less than a minute, I refilled my water and checked on the storm going on outside. The trees were blowing around like crazy, and the rain was basically flooding the roads. We didn't get many big storms like this around here, so it was always interesting. When we did, our town definitely wasn't built for them. I went back to the couch and turned on YouTube to try and ease myself into getting sleepy. I wasn't too tuned into what I was watching. I guess I was kind of spacing out or whatever. But then again, I saw a shadow on the wall behind the TV move. It was like something behind me just peeked around the corner for a split second. I jolted my head around and looked at the opening. 2, the living room. Nothing was there. I got up and walked over, looking all around that area, but I saw nothing at all. I didn't know what the hell was going on. It was like I was just seeing things, but I never had it happen twice like that before. Was I just sleepy? I didn't feel like it. I thought that the horror movie and the storm outside would make for a chill night, but this was far from it. Now I still thought it was nothing, but there was that tiny feeling in the back of my mind that it wasn't nothing. I spent another 15 minutes on the couch, but decided to go to bed afterward. I shut off the TV and headed upstairs. I still wasn't tired, and even less so after everything happening, so I hopped in the shower to relax myself before getting in bed. I turned on the water and tried to calm down. I was in there for maybe 5 minutes through the water. A sudden thud rang through the house. It was violent and loud, vibrating through the floors. My whole body shivered as I shut off the water and quickly got dressed with the water off. The house was quiet now. Not even the slightest sound. I felt like my ears were ringing, just from the disturbing silence that followed. The thud, I slowly made my way into the hallway, and then down the stairs. I walked through the living room, and then the kitchen. The back door was barely hanging on from the top hinge, completely open, and splinters of wood covered the floor under it. The 2 other hinges looked like they were ripped out of the wooden doorway. I ran up to my room and called 911, locking myself in the bathroom that whole time. I waited. I thought I was trapped inside my home with someone. But when the cops arrived, we quickly realized that wasn't the case. The door wasn't ripped off the hinges from the outside, it was from the inside. It was like someone angrily left, swinging the door open so hard that it slammed back into the wall and ripped the screws out of the doorway. Whoever it was had been inside my house that whole night. Likely, the shadows I saw were them inside my home, probably moving as soon as I looked at them. I have no idea how long they were there for, or what they were doing in my home watching me for. It's also really strange that they destroyed my door like that. Like they were frustrated I've never slept well in this house since then. Story 2 by Caitlin O. This was last winter. I can't recall exactly when, but I know it was snowing a lot during this week and I barely left the house because of it. I worked what I think is called hybrid. So sometimes from home and sometimes in the office because of the snow. I stayed home this whole week and worked from a small desk in my bedroom. My house was small, only one story and just 2 bedrooms. On this day, I got up and made coffee, then sat down to work and pretty much stayed at my desk until 8 p.m. It was windy and snowing outside the whole day. When I finally got up, I made dinner, then cleaned up around the house, then went outside to bring the trash bins down to the curb. As I was walking back to the front door, I noticed the snow on the left side of my house looked strange. Like everywhere else, it was piled up and flat. But over there, something clearly had messed with it, so I walked over to get a closer look and could quickly recognize that it was a line of shoe prints going through the snow. This was a little concerning because it was really close to my house, not just like kind of in the area. I followed the prints going all the way down the side of my house until there was suddenly no more. At the end, it looked like they'd moved around in this one spot for a while, and it was directly outside the window to my bedroom that I was working in. This was extremely creepy. I mean, it was cold, windy, and snowing. Why was anyone even outside walking around to begin with? And going up to my window, thankfully, I had the blind shut, but you could still kind of see through the cracks. Right on the other side of the window was my desk, so they could have been watching me. I hoped I was just overthinking it. I went back inside and warmed up. I didn't exactly know what else to do about it. Obviously, they weren't there anymore, so there was nothing to do. I continued with my night, eventually going to bed around 11. I had checked out the window one last time before sleeping, and the snow had covered up all the tracks from before, and there were no new ones. So I felt better. I triple-checked that it was locked, then got in bed. I slept through the night. The first thing I did, once I woke up, was go over to the window and check again. My tired face immediately woke up. There were fresh prints in the snow, again right by the window. I quickly threw on my jacket and snow boots and ran outside. The prints were almost exactly the same as before, going up to the side of my house and piling up right under my window. I looked around at the empty blanket of snow that covered the rest of the ground near my house, but there were no signs of anything else or anyone nearby. I went back inside. I ended up calling the non-emergency police number to report what was going on. I knew they wouldn't be able to do anything, but I thought that at least if something did happen, they would be aware of the situation. After that, I had to work, though I tried to check out the window every so often. But the snow slowly filled in the shoe prints, and I never saw anything more. I got out of work at 8 again, so the sun had long set, and the night was cold and windy. I got up from my desk and went to the window, pushing aside the blinds and seeing flat, untouched snow. The relief I felt was immense, but my eyes floated down just as I was letting go of the blinds, and my heart nearly stopped. The latch was undone. It wasn't locked anymore. I couldn't believe it. I had triple-checked it last night and never touched it. Since I shakily reached my hand down and grabbed the handle, the window opened With ease, I felt my heart racing. They had to have unlocked it last time they were here, which was in the middle of the night. How did I not hear it, and did they get inside? I backed away and crept into the hallway. My eyes sifted through every inch of the hallway. As I slowly made my way to the front door, I got my keys and put my boots on, then ran out to my car. I called the police and stayed in the driveway. I don't think my car could make it out of the snow. No? Even if I wanted to leave 10. Long minutes later, an officer pulled up. He went inside to make sure it was clear. Time seemed to move extremely slow. I waited as the minutes passed. Once it got close to 5 whole minutes, I knew something was wrong. Then he finally came out with a man in handcuffs. Both the officer and the man were covered in blood, clearly having gotten into an altercation. The officer said he was hiding in a hallway closet and jumped him. The man was 45 and just had that creepy evil look to him. There was no saying what he was trying to do, but clearly he was capable of violence. I don't know what would have happened had that gone on for any longer. Story 3 by Nathaniel. I was visiting my parents over spring break. This was the first time I tried out Airbnb, since the city I was going to was small and Airbnbs were cheap there. I made the 2-day drive and pulled in just after the sun had set as I parked at the driveway and got my stuff out of the car. I looked around at the neighborhood I was in. The atmosphere felt a little off. It was very dark and not busy in any way at all. No street lights on the road and nobody walking around or driving. And the Airbnb home I was at was the only house with lights on. It wasn't even that late, but all the other houses were dark. There were maybe 1 or 2 lights in a couple of houses, and that was it. Maybe things around here were just different. I didn't know. I headed into the house and got my things unpacked. I had no plans for this night aside from resting from the long drive and just getting comfortable at the rental. I ate some snacks and turned on a movie in the bedroom. A couple hours went by. It was probably around 9 or 10 when I heard something outside of the room. I paused the TV and waited a few seconds. Then I heard it again. It was someone knocking on the front door. I immediately checked my phone, thinking maybe I missed a call from the host, but I had nothing. I got up and went down to the front door. That whole time, they were continuously knocking, so it seemed like they actually needed me for something. And it wasn't just a salesman or whatever. I opened the door. There was a man in his 30s wearing a black winter hat and a distressed red flannel. He looked confused when he saw me. I said hi. He sort of awkwardly smiled, then went back to a straight face. He mumbled something under his breath as he turned around and walked away. I just stood there in disbelief and watched him walk down to the road. I closed and locked the door. I really had no idea what to think about. That the way he was knocking over and over, only to just not say anything and leave, was weird. Maybe he had the wrong house and was just too awkward to say anything. I went back to the bedroom. The rest of that night was fine, and I got up early in the morning to go out and see my parents. I was out until 6 when I got back to the rental. I was pretty tired again, so I went to the bedroom and just watched TV and chilled for the rest of the night. But around 9 again, there was that same knocking at the front door. This time I was more worried than confused. I still checked my phone again for any texts or calls, but there wasn't anything. I was a little more cautious. Walking up to the door this time, I checked out the peephole first, and it was the same guy. He was wearing the same hat in flannel this time. I only cracked open the door and asked what he needed. The man's reaction was almost identical to last time. except it was more dramatic. Like he really didn't expect to see me again. Is everything okay? Was this someone you were looking for? The man looked at me with a straight, hollow face. No, he said in a monotone voice. He turned and walked away again. I really didn't know what that guy was looking for or who he thought lived here, but it was getting creepy. I went back to the bedroom, but left the door open to the hallway, so I could hear better. Something about this was really strange, and I didn't like it at all. A couple hours went by. It was late, so I turned off the lights and went to bed. When I woke up, my eyes opened to the pitch black bedroom. It was dark and quiet. Still, the middle of the night, I wasn't sure why I'd woken up, but I sat up and I started to hear something from outside, maybe like a whisper or something. Then there was a sudden knock at the front door. It was loud and harsh. I got up from the bed and went into the hallway. The loud hits against the door shook the whole house as I quietly crept down. Down the hall, I caught a glimpse of something move past one of the windows on the other side of the hallway. When I got to the end and looked out the door, I saw that same guy, but further back in the dark, there was someone else. They were clearly hiding, waiting for something. I felt my body going numb from the adrenaline spiking. I turned around to go back and get my phone, but instantly locked eyes with a man staring at me through the back window. I panicked and sprinted into the bedroom. I heard multiple footsteps start running around the house. Not just like a couple, it sounded like maybe a dozen men out there as I called the police. I heard all the windows and doors around the house being moved and attempted to be opened. Several excruciating minutes went by as I listened to this group of men surround the house and try to force their way in before I heard sirens in the distance. All the men disappeared within seconds, with the place being an Airbnb. The police contacted the host, who seemed more annoyed than concerned. It was a little weird considering the experience I just went through on his property, staying at his house to sum it up. Though they never figured out any more details after the years. I think my best guess is that someone else had stayed at the Airbnb that knew the men that showed up. They probably thought he lived there, and when they saw me answer, they were confused. Maybe they were mad at the previous guy, or just wanted to talk to him and thought I was hiding him or something. Or they could have just been insane. The host was definitely a little strange too. I wouldn't be surprised if the group had some beef with him and found this address was under his name, whatever the true intentions were. I guess we'll never know.